Now, before I get into this review in earnest, one thing I forgot to mention last week, or I didn't remember, is that the Doctor has actually visited the Interstellar Song Contest once before, in the Big Finish story Bang Bang Boom, where he and his companion Mel ended up going back to something like the 309th Interstellar Song Contest. I didn't remember that at the time, but I have done a review of it, so if I remember I'll stick it up somewhere here. Anyway, we now come to Wish World, the 7th episode of Doctor Who's either 15th series or 2nd season, and it's the first half of the 2-part finale written by Russell T Davies. The world has seemingly changed. Reality has been rewritten. We see the 15th Doctor, now going by the name John Smith, played once again by Ncuti Gatwa. He has settled down and he is married to a woman named Belinda Chandra, of course played by Varada Sethu, and the two of them have a daughter together, named Poppy, who you might remember as Captain Poppy from last year's opening episode, Space Babies. Yeah, seemingly something has gone very strange with reality. I did wonder if possibly the fact they live at number 11 is supposed to be like a remarkable point. It's not, I don't think, but anyway, they live very happy together, they have a baby, they're living in this kind of 50s, 60s inspired world, and everything seems quite perfect, or at least appears to be. They even live next door to a woman named Mel Bush, played by Bonnie Langford, and everything seems to be alright for everyone, with the Doctor working for the kind of big company UNIT, the Unified National Insurance Team. Yeah, something has gone very wrong here. Or at least they can't seem to see it. And any time they do start to see kind of inconsistencies or things that don't quite match up, a mug seems to smash somewhere. And things only get stranger for the Doctor when a mysterious woman appears at his door. And this woman tries to ask if he is the Doctor, even though John Smith doesn't really understand. The woman is his former companion, Ruby Sunday, played once again by Millie Gibson, who we last saw at the end of the during the episode Lucky Day. But unable to really explain herself and not wanting to be captured by the authorities, Ruby runs along. The Doctor heads off to his job at Unified National Insurance Team, where he ends up meeting up with his boss, Kate Stewart, played once again by Gemma Redgrave, Christopher Ibrahim, played once again by Alexander Deviant, and hell, even Susan Triad is back as a tea lady, played once again by Susan Twist. But the thing about this world is that while it seems perfect from the outside, we, the audience, quickly gather that things are not. In this kind of perceived world of perfection, there are people who had to be left behind. As Ruby ends up discovering when she ends up running into, well, former UNIT scientific advisor Shirley Ann Bingham, who in this universe, in this reality, is seemingly homeless. And she ends up bringing Ruby to this group of people who, because they have certain disabilities, they're kind of discarded by society. I mean, Shirley is disabled. They have members who are blind, members who are deaf. Hell, even just the Doctor talking to Ibrahim inside units and saying to her, well, you should ask your boss out. It's like, yeah, well, I'm not really sure. I mean, she's way beyond my league. It's like, oh, no, you're not. I mean, you're an attractive guy. And there's just like, even being gay in this world is seemingly a problem. But the reason why the world is the way it is because of the big return of the Rani, played in this time by Archie Panjabi. Actually, in this world, there are two versions of the Rani, one played by Archie Panjabi, and then the previous one played by Anita Dobson. Because, of course, we saw at the end of the Interstellar Song Contest, Mrs. Flood bi-generated, and she was revealed as the Rani, and now there are two versions of the Rani running around. It's ultimately revealed that what has happened is that back in the Rani went back to 1865, where she ended up going to kind of a cabin in the woods and discovering a family the father was like the seventh son of a family, and he and his wife had 6 children so far, and the mother had just given birth to their 7th son. However, the Rani insists on taking the child with her, kidnapping. Even though the family try to object, the Rani seemingly manages to turn the mother into crystals, the other children into ducks, and the father into an owl. Because it's revealed that this child has certain powers, which are kind of revealed later on in the episode. Ultimately, as I said, they end up discovering that doubts in this world seemingly cause random things to happen, including kind of mugs falling off walls. And the Doctor, or John Smith, gets a point about this when he's watching TV. And the other thing in this world that is different is that Conrad Clark, the douchebag ex-boyfriend of Ruby Sunday, played once again by Jonah Hauer-King, who we last saw in Lucky Day. In this world, while everyone is kind of going about their days, he is seemingly telling stories about the Doctor. He is the kind of narrator of this world. Although why the books explain the Doctor's adventures are illustrated like the original covers of Harry Potter, I don't know. But as I said, he is kind of the narrator of this world. The Rani ended up giving the child to him, and while watching a kind of broadcast from Conrad, the Doctor also gets a brief message. We do briefly see his granddaughter Susan, played once again by Carole Ann Ford, but then the kind of big surprise of this particular episode is the return, or the very brief return, of Jonathan Groff's Rogue. Now, last series, Rogue was one of my personal favourite episodes. I loved that episode, and for a while, we haven't seen Jonathan Groff again, so I just thought, I'd like to see him again at some point, but maybe they've just forgotten. Maybe they're just going to leave it there. But I am glad to see him again, as he appears with a very brief message for the Doctor telling him one thing: tables don't do that. And upon trying it out, placing several mugs on the table, the Doctor realises, no, tables shouldn't do that. They shouldn't just kind of phase in and out of reality, allowing the mugs to drop right through. However, the Doctor's doubts eventually lead to him and Belinda getting arrested and brought to the Rani's bone castle. Now, one more thing I'd like to say about the Rani is that one thing I got wrong last week is that the Rani has, at this point, been played by 4 different actresses. She was originally played in the 1980s by Kate O'Mara in the stories Mark of the Rani in 1985 and Time of the Rani in 1987. Those were the 2 big ones, and I have actually gone back this week and actually rewatched those stories, and I do actually really like them. I do think they're really good. That does lead me to one small criticism about Archie Panjabi as the Rani. I mean, Archie Panjabi as the Rani, she looks like she's having the time of her life in every scene she's in. She is just owning it, and I do like that kind of energy. The only thing about it that I feel doesn't quite line up is that I felt Kate O'Mara's Rani was a little bit more callous. I mean, the idea of the Rani originally was that while the Master was, yes, this kind of gleeful villain, hamming it up and enjoying every scene, the Rani was much more subdued. Like, the idea of her was supposed to be she's this scientist running these scientific experiments, and she doesn't necessarily care if people get hurt along the way. Whereas Archie Panjabi's Rani, well, she's not bad, certainly. I'm happy to see the Rani back. To me, I felt as though she was liking it a little bit too much. Like, I felt if she'd be a touch colder, then maybe I think I would like it a lot more. But anyway, Kate O'Mara's Rani played the Rani in 2 times on screen. She also appears in numerous books, comics, and the Big Finish productions until Kate O'Mara passed away in 2014. She was later replaced in the Big Finish audio dramas by Siobhan Redmond, which I haven't really listened to any Rani Big Finish stories, so I can't really comment on that. And then, of course, you got Anita Dobson and Archie Panjabi. The Rani ends up bringing the Doctor and Belinda aboard, kind of revealing kind of her big plans, while Ruby, Shirley, and a friend of theirs end up trying to break into the Bone Castle. But then the Rani reveals her big stuff, and I'll be honest, this kind of big reveal of what she's trying to do, I was not seeing it coming. While I found out about the Sutekh reveal a little bit early last year, I was very good this time. I kept away from it, but I will admit a few days before I was saying well, I posted to a Doctor Who fan page something along the lines of, okay, last year we had Sutekh, this year we have the Rani, but next year can we have, and I mentioned a certain character from Classic Who, and I remember some people saying, well, if inside sources are to be believed, we're actually getting him this year, and I was like, I'll believe that when I see it. And okay, we haven't seen it yet, but he is involved, so ultimately the Rani reveals that she wants people to question this reality. Like, they want people to have doubts, because doubts will ultimately what activates her plan and destroys or breaks down this kind of plate of reality. When the Doctor asks why she wants to do that, what she wants to find down there, she reveals that she wants to break down reality in order to release at least the body of the Time Lord President, Omega. As I said, I was kind of hoping we might see Omega next series or something, but just the idea that Omega is kind of coming now, I was immediately like, oh. Well, we're boned. Yes, quote Bender, we're boned. But, yeah. The one thing that I kind of hope they don't do with Omega, I mean, here's the thing. I'm slightly wondering now if I have to go back and rewatch The Three Doctors and Arc of Infinity. I may get around to that, I might not. But with Omega, I mean, I personally really like the classic design from the 1970s with a kind of gold faceplate. The one from the 1980s in Arc of Infinity, I wasn't as big a fan of, because I didn't necessarily hate it, but I didn't think it was quite as good as the kind of original gold face, but then again, that's just me. But what I really hope they don't do with Omega is I hope they don't Galactus him, if that makes sense. For those who maybe don't remember, back in 2007, Fox released the film Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, which was promising Galactus. And ultimately what Galactus ended up being in that film was basically just a giant cloud. And fans kind of ripped apart on that. They kind of argued against it, and while we are set to get a version of Galactus later this year in Fantastic Four First Steps as part of the MCU, fans were really not happy about the idea of Galactus just being a big cloud. Now, of clips I've seen from next week's episode, spoiler alert here, it seems that the Rani wants to release Omega to use his body to kind of use her to rebuild Time Lord society. That's seemingly what they're going for. I hope we'll get to see some version of Omega, like some sort of... we don't need to see like him in human form, but I really want him to have some type of physical form. I really hope it's not just like a giant kind of cloud thing. I hope they actually show a body for Omega and kind of make it a good one, because the Rani coming back, that... I was hesitant about it last week, but having seen her this week, while I know she chews the scenery a little bit too much, here I actually think she is really good, and I really hope they do a good job with Omega here. Also, one thing I didn't mention is that the reason how Conrad has been able to rewrite this reality is because the child the Rani stole earlier is actually another member of the Pantheon, Desiderium, the god of wishes. And when I heard the Rani was coming back last week, I was like, oh, okay, so we're not going to get another god this year, not another member of the Pantheon. But, hey, we wish it comes. We get the new member of the Pantheon, Desiderium, the god of wishes, to which one of the clips from next week shows that the Rani's saying that, yes, the child is a baby, but if the child was older, then they could have a lot more power. So I can't wait to see what they do with that. So, as I said, coming out of the Interstellar Song Contest and seeing the Rani was coming back, I was hesitant. But I think Archie Panjabi and Anita Dobson have more than proven themselves as kind of good versions of the Rani. We're getting the big return of Omega, and next week is due to be called The Reality War. Can't wait to see what happens there. Anyways, but until next time, I actually think this is a really good episode, and I can't wait to see what happens next week, and how the Doctor gets out of falling from that balcony. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, until then, I'm Ozzy.